Must be high gluttony if I'm making a mess.
Oh, well, that's how I know anything's happening at my house.
Any fun stuff anyway.
Welcome. Hi, Gluttony. I'm Gretchen.
I'm Becca.
So now you almost could teach this class. I don't have to do this.
Oh my God, this is just an outline, Gretchen. I leave all of this. If this were me on my own, I would be like, hi, I'm going to outline the growth cycles. There are stages. There are propagating and cloning options. It's an annual. Gretchen grows her own. That is how my my teaching would be.
Very basic. Got it.
Just reading my notes. I don't have this knowledge to fill in like you do.
I mean, I guess it helps. So we're questing again, and we're
absorbed from Monty Python of our youth. We're on a quest.
I'm just so glad you get that reference. That makes me really happy. So.
How could we do this podcast if we both did not know how to immediately start coconut shell clapping?
Or being able to fill in each other's gaps so well, it's pretty nice. So
it's true. So hello.
We're questing. Yay. Welcome to Canna Quest number 4.
Woohoo. Lucky number 4.
I'm Gretchen.
I'm Becca.
And we are gonna go back a little bit more basic scenarios. Beep, beep, beep. So you can learn a little bit more about the plants themselves. So we're going through the growth cycle, a little bit of the plant biology, a little bit of anatomy, just sort of get you familiar with the different parts and where your marijuana comes from if you don't happen to be somebody that grows your own, like I do. So
exactly. So we're calling this our roots to buds exploration. And because it's a Canna Quest and because Gretchen grows her own, it's whiteboard time. We are back to the whiteboard. Gretchen is back at it. She is teaching me all the things. I'm super excited to learn.
And it's a 2-sided whiteboard. It's not just one side. You got 2 sides.
So many facts.
Well, let's hope so. Anyway,
we'll see.
We'll see what happens. I'm gonna say I'm feeling surprisingly sober. I might have to smoke a little.
Absolutely.
So I'm having a little blueberry this go around.
Nice. I'm still sticking to my Tropicana Kush, which has been so fun already. It's also a very high THC, so I am thriving.
You are great.
Yeah,
hang on.
Great.
Oh God, not again.
We're also both drinking Negronis. We try to have a drink while we do Canna Quest. I'm not sure why, but it's fun.
I mean, it just makes it more interesting, doesn't it? Oh,
it makes it more interesting. And it also makes me have so much more respect for teachers who are sober, because how do you teach somebody if you don't have a little Negroni in your system? Just kidding. But we are drinking Negronis, and I always like to point out the history of the Negroni because I think it's kind of funny. And that is that there was this count in Italy. I think it was Florence. I'm actually not sure. I don't know if it matters. His name was like Count Negroni, and he would always go to this one bar, and the classic cocktail or the popular cocktail was something called an Americano, which was Campari, sweet vermouth, and soda water. And this count goes in and he's like, fuck that. Not strong enough. I would like you to replace the soda water with gin. And the bartender goes, absolutely. And now this is a Negroni. So thank you, Count Negroni, for creating this like super strong cocktail, which is now just Campari, sweet vermouth, and gin, unless you're Gretchen and you're doing Aperol, sweet vermouth, and gin. So cheers.
So here we are. Cheers.
With our Negronis.
Let's talk about some plants.
Let's talk about it. Here we go. We are going to kick it off with growth cycle. Then we're going to talk about structure, and then a little bit about the different types of plants in terms of male, female, and then a hermaphrodite and species. And then we're just going to close it off a little bit with some of the things that cannabis is similar to. Kick it off, Gretchen. Growth cycle.
Can't get into the growth cycle without discussing your options for how you start your plant. 2 ways to do it. You can get seeds and grow seeds. This is a less reliable way to get your genetic. If you get a plant that you really like, you really should be cloning. You kind of designate a mother plant. I've always had a little bit of trouble keeping one stable mother plant going. So I've done clones of clones of clones of clones. They say you're not supposed to do that. I haven't had that much trouble with it. So
Barbara Streisand's dogs seem fine.
I think so. Basically, cloning is taking a piece of another plant and getting it to develop its own roots, and then you grow your plant from there.
Is that propagating in other terms? Okay.
Yeah, they're fairly interchangeable. So it takes 10 to 14 days for rooting to occur when you're doing a clone, versus if you're doing from seed, you have your germination, which takes anywhere from 3 to 10 days. Your seedling stage, which is another 2 to 3 weeks before you get into your vegetative stage. Shortest amount of time you're going to leave it there is 3 weeks, but more typical is about 10, 8 to 10.
Okay.
And then you have your final stage, flowering, 8 to 11 weeks. So if you're doing clones, you get to jump a little bit because basically your rooting takes place in 10 to 14 days. And then once you transplant it, it's sort of in a seedling stage for 2 to 3 weeks. And then vegetative and flowering are the same. These are your two main options.
So from seed, it's about, as you have on the whiteboard, 3 to 8 months total, starting with germination to seedling to vegetative to flowering. And then from clone, it's a little
really
bit less time.
A little bit less.
A little bit less.
Probably about the same.
Okay. But this kind of combines germination and seeding into the rooting and transplant process.
Okay.
Correct. And then again, vegetative and flowering to close that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's roughly equivalent, going to be about the same. Just with cloning, you're using the same plant over and over and over again. So you know exactly what you're getting. Whereas anytime you grow anything like marijuana from seed, since it's so prone to, I don't know if you'd call that mutating, but changing its genetics. You
choosing its own path.
Yeah. It's so bad. We're going to call it now.
Yeah.
I mean,
be what you want, cannabis plant.
Yes, be what you want. So that's fine. I've done it both. Right now, I have a bunch of seeds from that year that I had a male and had a bunch of seeds in my pot. And so we're going to try and grow some of those and have some surprises next year.
Nice. I love it. And so you have seeds, like you said, because you do have male plants sometimes, which we'll get into in a minute, but you most often clone, like you said also. That's kind of, when you like something, you're going to want to stick to cloning.
Correct. Yes. And there are lots of places you can, if you want to grow your own, you can actually go and buy clones from places sometimes, depending on what it is or where you are. You know, it's all about the laws in your area.
Sure.
But there's a few places in Oakland like that I could go to where they sell seedlings, or not seedlings, clones. Might be kind of fun to do at some point.
Totally. And it's great too, because as we've been discussing and learning, so much of what actually makes a difference, both physiologically, physically, and psychologically, is how your endocannabinoid system interacts with the terpenes and the cannabinoids of the cannabis plant. And so being able to understand how your body responds to those, and then being able to identify those specific strains, it's really exciting for people who are using this as a medicine or even just for adult use, to be able to identify, like we said earlier, just those specific terpenes and stuff, and then follow those clones instead of trying to follow those seeds and maybe losing some of that. Like you said, the genetic consistency isn't there. So when you lose some of that, it might affect the way your body responds to it without you even knowing about it.
Right. So, sorry, I just forgot everything you just said.
It was a lot.
But I very much agreed with it. I believe.
I think I regurgitated a lot of what you already said too. It was just like Rebecca translation.
Right, but you are also bringing up the point that it's better for people who are trying to find getting that same consistent result with what they have. If you're using it more for a medicine for something, if you find something that works really well for you that you're able to grow, then you're insured pretty much a steady supply.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. How nice if you can grow your own medicine.
right?
Incredible. Not if, when everybody can, and the stupid laws enforce that instead of.
Because
Okay.
you were saying
Yeah.
that when you go to the store, you have a hard time getting a consistent thing that you know what the effect is going to be every time, basically.
Exactly. And as much as there are informed and helpful people on the other side of the counter, it is also a situation where you're in COVID. They are still trying to maintain like a happy vibe energy. So there's music playing, but everybody's wearing masks. So you can't hear what the other person is asking. So it doesn't really inform much of a specific conversation towards like, I think I really respond well to, myrcene terpenes. What do you have today that's, heavier in myrcene? Like that kind of conversation just isn't as comfortable or as possible, even though it might be in other spaces. But anyway, it's just interesting because then also, it wasn't even until a few months ago that I understood what terpenes were. So the evolution of my own understanding is changing every day.
Well, and it's just going to help you find what you need in the end. So
exactly. And I often find that sometimes there are strains that give me a little bit of a like teeth clenching kind of thing. And I really want to be able to avoid those, but I don't know how to identify them beyond the standard so far of, is this a sativa or an indica or a hybrid? And what's the THC percentage? Like that's been the extent of it.
If there are more like tracking apps now on the store.
That makes sense. It's probably something we should investigate. We could probably spend a whole episode dedicated to just like things we have found helpful in terms of tracking and guiding your like medication path.
We've gone over the growth cycle and then we went on a tangent. Now we're going to come back.
Weird that we went on a tangent.
Side quest.
Clap, clap.
I meant to look for coconuts at the grocery store today, but
maybe we just have to keep some shells around for these such occasions.
Yeah. No, it's funnier if I get the actual coconuts. I used to have some for a really long time because when I was a child, I used to run around my backyard like I was riding a horse. I would gallop around the backyard. So
second on pineapple course.
Yeah, second on pineapple course.
And you'll get that when you listen to our pineapple upside down cake episode.
It'll be funny. So after we started watching Monty Python stuff, he insisted that we needed coconut shells, and I kept them for a really long time.
Yeah, I could see
I don't
that.
have them anymore. So
St. Patrick's Day is coming up. I could send you a coconut shell St. Patrick's Day gift.
Well, I don't even know what to say to that at all. Let's go back to the plants. Okay. I forgot what we were talking about.
All right. So we've talked about the stages. You talked through the different types of growth in terms of seeds or clone. And now I think we're
going to get into more growth cycle, I guess, but figuring out what you have as
structure.
Far as ladies or gentlemen go.
Oh, okay. So we are going to talk about the sexing plants next.
The sexing plants, because
reason,
pot is technically an annual. It basically grows 1 year for one growing cycle and then it dies. You can manipulate this when you grow it. We'll save that for the growing episode that we're going to have to do at some point, but it is an annual. So one and done.
Does that mean one cycle of flowering? The plant doesn't die. It just means you only get only one time in that year will you get the opportunity to harvest it.
No, grow 1 year only. It grows for 1 year.
1 year. How many times does it flower in 1 year?
Just once. You only get one flowering out of it, and then
the whole plant dies.
Yes.
So how would you ever keep a mother?
You don't let it go to flower. So basically, how the plant, hang on, guess we have to do this if we're going to talk about that.
Beep, beep.
Have to talk about how the plant knows when to do what.
I don't
Really
know this. This is
more
awesome.
of the growing side of things. So we actually didn't talk about this at all yet. But what tells the plant to flower is the length of day. It's going to do the most growing in their vegetative state. So as plants grow naturally outside, you have your spring, or well, maybe in nature,
From
this
seed.
is just how, from seed, this is how it's going to go, where it's springtime, how plants know to go to flower.
From seed.
From seed. So you're talking about how the year goes. So your seeds, so this is, basically how plants grow in general. But you have your spring, when the plant basically wakes up or starts growing from the seed, which
germination.
Every year would be for pot plants. They grow 1 year and then they die. Basically, you're only getting it from seed in the wild. So you've got spring, like end of spring into summer.
Wait, sorry. So germination is spring.
It's like I'm dragging my finger on the board, showing Becca, but not saying it out loud.
Yeah.
Germination occurs in spring. So that's when your weather is warming up. It's still quite damp. Usually on a regular, the plant won't have to worry about any sort of drying out. So basically it's kind of on a race to get established before the summer comes, which is when you want to be in your vegetative state, which is when you have the most light. So that then as you start to go into fall, that's when the plant starts to go into flower.
Okay. So in a tree, it would be the leaves turning color and falling off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. So that it would be shutting down for the summer, but this is basically like we just come to breed and then we leave,
We have served our purpose. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
In sustaining a mother for permanent cloning, you have to keep it at a constant level of light.
Oh, you have to keep it in a vegetative state.
Yeah, so it's got to stay. So that's so I have timers on my grow tent that turn the lights on and off. So we can simulate. The vegetative side does a long day, like I think 16 hours or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then my flowering side does, I forget what I have it set at this point. It's like 6 hours.
Sure. Like
that's a really dramatic.
June 21st and December 21st.
So when you're trying to keep mother, you just keep it in this vegetative stage under the same level of light for as long as you can. So
okay. So as soon as it flowers, you've lost it as
it's done.
Reproducible plant.
Because basically every time you clone, you have to be in a vegetative state, because if you're anything past vegetative into flowering, if you get it to root, all it's going to do is grow this tiny little bud. And I can take a picture of a plant that I have that's like that right now.
Okay, please do. So if you are going to clone, you have to do it in the vegetative state.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've definitely tried. I've tried to get some stuff that's like a little too far past the vegetative state, and it doesn't work. So
not so much.
Your mother has to firmly live in the vegetative state. So
okay. And that's light based.
And it's light based, yeah. A really good job. I would also keep my grow tent heated, but I'm not made of money. So
we all do the best we can.
So that's your growth cycle. Now your somewhere between seedling and vegetative state, that's where you're going to need to sex your plant. And late seedling stage, early vegetative stage is when that starts to become visible. So your ladies develop their little pistil. Wait, these are the stigma, aren't they?
The stigma
hairs.
Are the little hairs that stick out. Antenna, yeah.
And then the dudes will develop their little pollen sacs, and they really are. They do look like
testicles.
Because there's usually 2 of them. They look like little testicles.
Right.
It's actually interesting because it's like the male, when it flowers, has the more flowery looking flower because basically the entirety of the females is kind of just like a big pollen receptor. So because you have so many tiny, tiny little buds all over it.
Interesting.
You'll be able to see these sort of proto sex organs developing on the plants in late seedling, early vegetative stage.
Got it. And this is important because
the male, any men in your crop, if you do not want seeds, you got to get them out of there.
Right. Okay.
They will pollinate your flowers. Do not think you can control it. You cannot. So 1 year I had a male and was like, I'll just, get a few seeds, like control it. No, not possible. They pollinate by just wind. So like it's got really tiny pollen. So there's no controlling it. It will pollinate everything. So
It's the COVID version of men.
yeah.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Anyway.
It's important to know at that point in
Right.
the seedling vegetative in between stage what sort of production your plant is going to do. Yeah.
The males also don't, they do have a little bit of THC and some of the other chemicals, but they're really not as concentrated as they are in female plants. So that's why the female plants are prized. So yeah,
Superior.
cloning helps you also guarantee that you've got a female, unless you really stress out your plant sometime in the growth cycle, and then it can actually turn into a hermaphrodite.
So it gets both. Yeah.
Yeah. So it has both. So to be self-pollinating. Again, not a great situation. Also, it would pollinate any of your other ladies that were hanging around.
Although ideally it sounds like a dream scenario.
Just a half a dude and like all ladies.
Or just like, I have decided to reproduce myself and now I can.
Now I can. There's two types of hermaphrodites. You get buds and sacs, so it'll develop both sex organs. Otherwise, it gets these weird, like sort of elongated things they call anthers that look, they're like if you ever see the little pollen sacs, that it looks like a long one of those. So yeah, unfortunately, the hermaphrodites got to go too because they will.
So only the females can survive in terms of what you want on the other side of it.
Right. Okay.
All right. So now we've talked through growth cycle. We have talked through the different sexing of plants that are possible. And now is it on to structure?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
We have a stick.
We have a stick and we have flipped to the other side of the whiteboard. So
we are inside number 2 of the whiteboard situation. This is not a stick. This is actually a pot plant. This is one of my plants from last year. This one's sort of an interesting one. I'm really tempted to get into a lot of growing subjects today. This is I might be going off the track a little bit, but
push it down. I'm going to just real quick describe. So Gretchen's holding one of her plants from last year that flowered and then died. So we're looking at the root system, we're looking at the stem, we're looking at the branches, and we're looking at remnants of the
buds and
leaves and the nodes. Yeah.
Mostly. So I think I think that would be I'm smelling it like it's going to smell like anything. It's been outside for months, but
we're using that for reference, and we're also going to post some pictures of the plants that Gretchen is currently growing and that we have been using for reference.
Yeah. So with this guy, not sure what happened with this root. This is the tap root. It's kind of weird that it usually goes straight down from the bottom of the plant. This one is going out to the side.
So the root structure is one main root.
Yeah.
A tap root.
Yeah. So this is either planted this way, which I've done on occasion. And
hold on, let's back it up. I don't think we've described what's happening. So you have the root system. There's one main tap root. There's a couple of other little spindly roots that are coming out. And then the stem is growing at a 90-degree angle from the root.
Right.
And instead it's supposed to be in line.
Straight down.
Yeah.
So I obviously didn't take the most care to get this planted correctly. So yeah, you have your main taproot, your main stem, branches, and so the nodes are basically anywhere that like a branch meets the stem, or the stem from the leaf meets the branch, or where the buds intersect. So
a joint in your body.
Yeah. Yes. Kind of like that. Maybe not that last one I just said. I don't think that was right, but I don't remember. I'll have to listen.
I don't know what you said. Yeah. Just figure it out later.
I'll just get that out later. Because I don't know what I said, and it may not be right. Might have come out.
Okay, so you've got your roots, your stem, your nodes, and your branches.
And all that supports
your branches.
You get buds. And so you actually have colas. So what the part that you typically are getting if you're buying flour from the store, those are the colas. So those are groups of the female flowers.
Okay.
Okay.
So you're just ingesting flowers.
Yes.
Yeah.
The extent, that's why they call it flower. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. It's just
It doesn't seem like flowers.
there's
but
such
it
a
is flower.
stigma, and yes, exactly. And there's such a stigma behind a cannabis plant and the cola/bud in particular. And so it's so interesting that it's literally just a flower.
It's just a flower.
It's just a flower.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then you have your colas, which are the bud sites. Then you have your two types of leaves, which are your fan leaves and your sugar leaves. Your fan leaves are the large ones, the very typical. Here's my fan leaf, my very first sort of successful marijuana leaf drawing.
We'll share a picture.
A close one. Is it almost good?
It's really good.
What was I going to say about the leaves?
So there's the fan leaves and the sugar leaves, and the fan leaves are the big
ones.
The big ones that you associate with the image of a cannabis leaf.
Right. They generally have the lowest concentrations of THC, so aren't usually used. I do keep a fair amount of my trim, but I typically don't use the fan leaves anymore because I was just keeping tons and tons of trim and not doing anything with it because I had so much other stuff to work with that, like, okay, this is better to go in the compost pile and make compost.
Right. Just to back it up just a little bit. So when you say your trim, that's specific to the leaves you're pulling off.
Right. And for harvesting. So that'll be part of our growing
episode, whatever we call those.
Canaquest. It's a Canaquest.
Canaquest. It's an episode.
It's an episode.
You're so confusing.
You're the worst.
I know. Keep up.
All right. So your fan leaves have a low concentration. They do have some THC, but just not enough to really be worth ingesting. Although if you're just looking for a real mild high, that also might be a way to go, especially if you're ingesting. Yes.
So the leaves only have THC? They don't have
they'd have
cannabinoids?
They'd have THC and other they'd have the other things that are the beneficial parts of buds, cannabinoids and the terpenes and things like that, but lower concentrations of them.
Got it. So leaf and flower is equally medicinal. It's just in the amount that you are receiving. That's the difference.
So basically you'd have to go through smoke a lot more leaves to get high. A lot.
Or to feel the response of your endocannabinoid system.
Right. Yeah.
Got it.
You want to be technical about it, Becca. Jeez.
Well, I'm just trying to learn as we go. But high work too.
So then you have the sugar leaves, which are sort of interspersed with the colas. They typically have a pretty good coating of trichomes on them. So that's the part that carries the most THC. And we'll get into the trichomes in just a second. But yeah, they're sort of like a supporting character to the colas as far as what you're getting. I mean, some people trim them off. I simply find that they're so covered in trichomes that it seems silly to throw them away.
Yeah, use it.
That's just me. I can't throw anything away. Even old dead plant that died 3-4 months ago, and I'm able to have it here to hold in my hand so I can show you a root system.
Yeah, and
it will go in the compost now, but
after this. But you've used it again.
It had another purpose, another life.
That's right.
All right. So should we get into trichomes or should we finish talking about plant part?
Let's talk about the plant part.
So in your colas, so the sub part of your colas are the groups of your female flowers. There are little hair things those are your stigmas. As the plant grows, they start out white and then they turn like orange to red to brown as you go.
Based on like light and oxidation and aging.
Right.
Okay.
What? Oxidation? I remembered. Yes, that is relevant for what we're talking about.
So within the female plant, you're talking about like the reproductive part of it.
Right. So we're going in deep on the bud. So I'm just trying to give you a point of reference. It's part, we're looking at an individual part of a cola is what we're looking into, right?
Perfect.
At the early part of its life, it's going to look like, it also works as a nice pointer. So it's really had 3 lives.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
It's working very well.
Yeah. Gretchen's using it to highlight places on the whiteboard. So it's phenomenal little.
I know, right? So you have your bracts, which are these sort of leafy, because they do look much more akin to a leaf than a petal, but it's sort of a similar concept because they basically are green and are covered in trichome, but they are the part that protect your pistil, which is the actual like reproductive part that turns into the seed. However that happens. Not
Yeah,
that good.
that's not this podcast.
Yeah, and then you have your stigmas, which are the pollen catchers, and the stigmas kind of come out of those bracts just a little bit, and then the pollen is transferred back into the inside to the pistil, and the pistil is surrounded by this other part called the calyx. Kind of is just a protective barrier. Not that important, but I included it. Then you actually get up to here, so your bracts, they're then kind of swollen around the seed. It does look like a tiny little nut, is what it looks like,
or
or
like a little
bean.
walnut.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. I mean, the shape is very similar to a walnut, but much smaller.
Sure. Teeny tiny walnut.
Teeny tiny, like what, maybe 5 millimeters across. I'm
Yeah.
not good with estimates. And so you have those leafy parts on the outside, and the seed is inside. And so that's the end of the growth cycle. And as soon as those seeds are mature, the plant dies off, dump their seeds all over the ground, and you get more plants next year in the wild.
So the female plant still produces seeds.
Not without the male. It produces.
Oh, this is
basically
right.
if you what you're aiming for. I was just going through the end of the growth cycle. This, I don't do that.
Right.
We don't want
this is post vegetative on the way to the death rattle.
Right. So what you want is that, so you're cutting off that, with getting rid of all your males, you're basically going a big, you just basically
none of what we're talking about happens.
Right. You stay in this pistil stage where it's got they're all just sticking out all over the plants, being like, where are the dudes? Where are the dudes? And you're like, no dudes for you.
No dudes for you. Big X.
So dumb.
Well, this is how I learn.
I'm teaching you, and I think it's
thank God. I'm glad. Otherwise, I would never understand this.
All right. Well, I'm glad it makes it at least memorable for you.
There you go.
That's the main goal. Yeah, so the female flowers are the ones that have developed the most trichomes. So, and the trichomes are where all the action happens. So that's where your cannabinoids come from. Yeah,
your penis.
Your penis.
Yeah,
so bad that we keep calling it that.
Well, I can't help that it looks like it.
I mean,
what are we supposed to do about this?
Not even a reproductive organ. What it really does look more like a peony mushrooms. Of course, that still sounds like penis, but
I'm mushrooms. Like, what's the difference?
All looks like penises.
It's all the same. Okay, anyways, not the point.
The world revolves around all sorts of different shaped penises. My dad is not even registering this conversation. He's sitting right here.
That's so
totally
funny.
Stoic.
That's so funny. James is constantly like, wow, you guys are really talking about penises a lot. But yeah. Okay, you've got it.
Okay. Ladies have all the trichome action.
Yeah, they do.
You have 3 types. The ones that we just spent 5 minutes talking about, they look like penises, are the capitate stalk. So these are the ones, they have a trunk and then they have a bulbous head at the top.
Yeah, they're often kind of milky or
so they start clear, they start clear, and then as they mature, they go through a milky white stage, and then eventually, if you leave it on the plant long enough, it goes kind of brownish amber colored, and that's sort of like the most you're ever going to get out of it. Is I tend to pick mine. So I try and wait as long as I can, but I get a little impatient sometimes. So
naturally,
I tend to pick them closer into the milky white stage than the amber stage.
Got it.
I'm just not that patient.
Yeah, it's hard.
So those are the ones you can actually kind of see all over the plant, but they are cool to look at under like a little microscope. I have a little thing that I use to look at them when I'm judging how ready my plants are.
Cool. So that's capitate stalked, and that's CAPITATE. Stalked, STALKED. It's an eye exam test. I'm reading from Gretchen's whiteboard.
So then your next most common type is your capitate thale, which is only visible through a microscope. So I probably can't even see it with my little thing. Those are more often on the leaves than anything else. And then you've got the bulbous, which are very infrequent, sort of just kind of sporadically throughout the plant. And then, sparse. I was like, they're spurs?
How does that work? Yeah.
Can't even read my own handwriting. How sad. but you can't see them with the naked eye either. So
got it.
those
So
are
it's
your-
only the capitate stalks, like you said. Those are the
Yeah.
only trichomes that are visible to us.
So then we have the non-glandular trichomes. These are called syphilis. They just look like little hairs, and they're sort of a little protrusion that come out on the plant. But
Like a stigma.
yeah, sort of, but much, much, much smaller.
Got it. Teeny tiny.
I think that covers it.
That's awesome.
That's did we go through indica sativa? But
No, I think the last thing, so now we've talked about the growth cycle, the structure, the sexing plant. So now we are just going to dip into a little bit of the different type of species.
oh, right.
then-
That's right. That's right.
And then
Okay.
just the
'Cause I was
last thing we're going to do is other things that cannabis is similar to.
So most people who are into cannabis, they're like the two types are what? Sativa and indica, which now they're not so sure about all of that. But mostly right now we're referring to the marijuana or cannabis plants, but also hemp. And then there's another type called ruderalis that's sort of like hemp basically has 0 THC to it at all. It will not get you high. It just doesn't do it.
It does have CBD.
It does have CBD. So when you're in the store like Whole Foods and they have something that has CBD in it, most likely that's hemp CBD because that is how that's legal. Can't come
Right.
from those other types of plants that
Right.
have it.
And to connect this to Monty, a lot of hemp is grown in Turkey.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That would make sense. It does like a fairly dry climate. So
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So you've got sativa, indica, hemp, and ruderalis.
which
What?
it's basically like even more, what's the word I'm looking for here?
CBD?
Well, it's closer to hemp as far as like levels of THC to CBD. It does have some THC more than hemp, but not very much at all. Like if you had your plants with, sorry, it's hard because I don't have this mirrored. Plants with THC over here and your hemp over here, ruderalis would be like here.
So on a scale of hemp to sativa and indica, ruderalis is like 10 paces ahead of hemp, but like 100 paces behind sativa indica.
There you go.
Okay.
One way to put it.
The visualization of what your root stick
my
is showing.
stick is showing.
Yeah.
Thank God I have my Becca translator here.
I know. Okay, so ruderalis is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It is
It grows like anywhere. It's very hardy, I guess.
It's very hardy. It also appreciates a little bit of stress, right? And kind of like drier, harsher climates, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Little survivor.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
So-
what we've learned is that even though there are these different type of species and your body can respond differently to them, what is really happening is the way your body responds within its endocannabinoid system to the different types of terpenes and cannabinoids. So all of these are important. And what's most important is figuring out how you respond to them.
Exactly. So marijuana is sort of an interesting plant.
It's very interesting. And I feel like often people talk about the medicinal properties of it, or they talk about the like, oh, we have to talk about it as a whole plant and we have to talk about it as like something bigger than itself. But at the end of the day, it is really just a plant that has a flowering property to it that has this incredible impact on our body. And it's so shitty that is stigmatized in such a way that it becomes not a plant and not something that has beneficial properties to it.
Yeah. Well, at some point we'll do a
We gotta
history
get
of
it.
marijuana
I know.
episode.
Yeah, we got to get into that. I think we're both avoiding it because it's like so heavy.
It's bad.
It's real bad. Yeah, but we don't want to ignore it. Yeah.
We'll get to it a bit at some point. But
We'll
yeah,
get to it.
so that's our roots to buds overview of the plant. So hope you
Yeah.
enjoy.
Real quickly, there are a couple of things that cannabis is really similar to, and I'm just going to read them out real quick. And that's
Okay.
hops, mint, spider flowers, hibiscus, and kiwi for different reasons. But the mint, the spider flowers, they look the most like the leaf structure of the fan leaves.
Mhm.
The hibiscus and the hops and those sorts of plants have a lot of similar structure to the colas and the buds and that property.
Yeah.
And then the kiwi we wanted to call out just for those different types of reproduction properties of the
Right.
male and female. And so there are a lot of, this is just a very short list too. So there are
Yeah.
a ton of things that cannabis
It's
as a
related
plant.
to. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think what's important to both of us is just highlighting how natural and I'm incremental is the word that's coming to my head, and that's not the right word. But anyway, It's important.
It's important. It's important to know.
It's important to both of us.
So,
This has been fun. Whiteboard time. I have learned so much.
Well, and we'll learn more as we get into the growth cycle stuff. So
There's so much to talk about.
So much.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us for our 4th CannaQuest. Be sure to check out our website where we're sharing the articles that we referenced, our Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, where we've got videos and photos of all the things we're talking about. And this was a blast. Thank you so much, Gretchen, for teaching me all this stuff. This was awesome. I'm super excited. We'll have to get into growth cycle, more growing side of it, at some point. Yeah. But there's always so much to talk about. Yeah. Who knows what we'll go to next.
I know. All right. Ta-da. Thank you for joining us. This was an awesome look.
Absolutely. Roots to buds. This was so much fun. I learned a ton as usual. So thanks for joining us. We will be sharing all of our resources on the website as usual, which is highgluttony.com. And be sure to check us out on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, all at High Gluttony.
And we want to engage with our listeners a little bit more. So we are looking for a cocktail for our next CannaQuest. So please send us your suggestions and wherever you like, either email or on Facebook or through Instagram. Let us know what we should drink.
Yeah. And that's highgluttony@gmail.com. So send us your cocktail ideas, please. We're excited.
highgluttony@highgluttony.com.
That's right. highgluttony@highgluttony.com. And then we are excited. We're exploring new ways to continue engaging with everybody. And since we talk about how much we love video games, but there's not a super space to share that within all of the repisodes and CannaQuest that we do. So we're looking into making some Twitch streams available with us playing video games on our own or together, which we're really excited to share.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see how that turns out. Y'all can experience the Ring Fit adventure.
Ring Fit Zelda. We actually do other things, and we're going to play some together. And we're also starting a Patreon, and we are excited to start sharing just some exclusive content on Patreon only. So stay tuned for all of that.
Get excited, guys. It's going to be good.
It's getting exciting. Thanks for joining us.
Yay!
Yay! See you next time.